What's up, folks? We're back here with the first Master Focus game analysis. We had a very intense matchup last week at the World Rapid and Blitz Chess Championship. This young phenom, Alexey Sarana, apparently he's only 22 years old, and he did something that I thought was impossible. He beat Hikaru Nakamura and Magnus Carlsen, not only beating them, but beating them back to back. How do you even do that? How do you even fathom the thought to do that? So we're going to look at this game between Sarana and Nakamura, and then how he beats Magnus Carlsen. Very basic instructional for new players. People want to learn the game. So let's see how this game develops. D4, C4. This is very reminiscent of a Queen's Gambit. Computer calls this one a Mexican defense. Never heard of that one before. So the game continues. If you notice, your opponent plays the pawn push here, G3, G6. Obviously, they're looking to fianchetto those bishops, take over the long diagonals. And they do, and they both castle. Then Sarana decides he's coming with some dragon type variation, I guess, here, fianchettoing both bishops. Magnus Carlsen, being the pro that he is, immediately strikes in the middle. Sarana develops the knight. All this is typical. Well, I don't want to say typical, but very calm, developing moves. Queen comes in. Notice the queen's coming in because after a pawn trade here, the queen will be on an open file. She does have to be mindful of this knight jump, which would attack the queen. Game continues, understanding that this file is going to come open soon. At some point, the rook comes over. Sarana brings his rook over. And right here is the first inaccuracy. Now, just because the computer says there's an inaccuracy doesn't mean it's actually an inaccuracy, because it's different from playing a human. A human might not be able to notice what the inaccuracy is. The computer is calling for a variation where you just develop the queen in and just play chess. That's all it's asking for. And we'll shuffle around pieces, right? We're not going to get too deep in the weeds on that variation, but that's what the computer's calling for. Stockfish. So then there's a take here, and then Sarana plays this move. Computer is calling for bishop h3, which is a more active move, which makes sense, right? Because there's no way to really defend this rook. I mean, I guess you could bring the knight back, but that would be digressive. Or you'd have to move the rook. This is Blitz, so you're going to see some mistakes here, some inaccuracies. It's Blitz. Anyway, let's go on. So, obviously, Hikaru played the knight move so that he could play c5. Open up that rook, attack the queen. Sarana takes back, and here the computer is calling for rook takes. I don't know why Hikaru played pawn takes. Typically, you would just play the rook move, right? Attacking the queen immediately. But maybe he saw something that he didn't like in the position. I don't know. It's kind of weird. This continues. Pawn takes. Computer's calling for knight to come back. We're not going to jump into that variation, but the computer's calling for knight to come back. Sarana plays a very human move, putting the rook on a potentially soon-to-be open file. Queen comes in. Computer says this is a mistake. They're calling for the knight to develop into the game on a pretty good square, controlling these squares. Eventually, the knight could play himself here if the bishop takes, pawn takes, and now the rook is attacking the queen. Sarana plays e3, stopping any pawn pushes here or actually countering them, right? Be mindful, you cannot take this pawn because that would be a queen trap. Rook would come over to a1. So Sarana plays this move. The computer says the advantage dips a little bit by 0.4. It goes from 1.0 to 0.6. He actually didn't have to push that pawn. I think he was worried about some discovered moves here with the bishops attacking, but he actually had time. He had time You just bring this back, and you could have kept that pawn there. And if the bishops trade off, as you'll see, the queen's going to be here. This pawn could have still sat here, and he would have been fine. He would have been fine. So just a minor inaccuracy, maybe. Pawn push here. This is obviously instructional because he wants to play this. So by playing here, you initiate the tension first. And if he pushes the pawn, then, well, potentially you have a nice square for the knight. Put that there. It's protected by the pawn. Easy peasy. Actually, it's protected by the pawn and rook. But be mindful that you can't take immediately because, well, you probably lose the queen. There's no traps there. Game continues. He plays here. Knight f6 mistake. Now, knight f6 is a mistake because you're going to see this amazing move that Sarana finds. I don't know how many people would actually find this. There's a lot of calculation here. I don't know how much time he took, but boom, knight takes c4, sacrificing the rook temporarily. Sacrificing the knight temporarily on c4. Computer's calling for pawn take. Hikaru takes with rook, so we get a rook trade, another rook trade. Bishop takes. And real quick, just to show you the variation, even if you played it by the computer, where D takes, it's still going to equalize the position. So basically, Sarana goes up a pawn here. So if we go into the variation where D takes, you trade off the rooks, rook take, bishop takes. And once the bishop takes, the queen has to take. And now Sarana wins back a piece with queen takes f6. Also applying pressure down this diagonal. Got to stay busy. Keeping a watchful eye on that. So as you see, this is how it would have continued. And the computer says right here, he would have been up 1.9. Anyway, we continue. Hikaru plays a different variation. Bishop comes back here. And the reason why the bishop comes back here is has to keep an eye on d1. Might be some tricky marionettes or something like that. Some tempo. Queen coming in, checking the king. That would not be good. g5, kicking the knight. And the knight comes up here. The knight alternatively could have come back here. Not sure if that's a good move or not. But anyway, these moves are played. Bishop comes back again. Staying on good squares, keeping pressure on this pawn. Also, this is a good diagonal to control at some point because the king is sitting on it. Knight comes in, queen comes in. This queen move here is to prevent the pawn from pushing. You don't want that pawn getting pushed. I think the computer initially wanted queen here, allowing that push, because even if it pushes, you just take back. I don't know, real weird. But also you got to understand that I can see why Sarana was scared, because if this pawn pushes, this knight would now be able to come into an active square. So we continue. H5, bishop takes. Here, the computer's calling for knight to, what's that, b5. Hikaru makes a bit of an inaccuracy here, attacking the queen, jumps back. Another inaccuracy. None of this really matters yet. Not too much. Computer says white is much better at 4.9. But right here is his first mistake. I'm sorry, blunder. Sarana's first blunder. And the computer is calling for G4. I understand G4. Like, after you see the variation, it makes sense that the structure is better here for white. But it's very counterintuitive to just break up your pawns like this. Like, you just would. This isn't a move you would see, especially not in a blitz game. G4. Wow, what a move. Quite instructional there. You know, I think what we're thinking about here is, you know, maybe bishop take, knight take, queen take. queen take, right? Like, we're trying to keep this. This is where all the tension is right now. It's right there on c4. So it's going to be hard to see that. Anyway, g4 was not played. Now Hikaru's able to play g4. This is going to restrain the bishop. As you can see, the bishop's just getting locked down. b5, pushing the pawns. And then here, this is a mistake. Bishop takes, pawn takes, and this next move, very instructional. You don't want any back rank mates happening here because this pawn is just doing a great job of controlling these squares in front of the king. c3, inaccuracy. Obviously, queen takes, but Hikaru was trying to induce some mistakes here. But as you can see, you just drop back. Now, as you can, if we count the pawns, you'll see 1, 2, 3 for black, and then for white, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for white. So we have 6 versus 3. So if white can trade off these queens, it's just a winning endgame. Hikaru hops back, and now he's looking to pawn gobble to equalize the position. Queen b1. Here the computer was asking for king g1. This is definitely not a move you would think to play. I don't know how you're supposed to find that. That's just crazy. h3, inaccuracy. And I want to show you something. We're coming up really fast. Right here, Sarana makes his first huge blunder. This is a game losing play right here. Hikaru at this point could have won the match. All he had to do was find this crazy combination, which begins with queen check. So it goes queen check. Keep in mind, king cannot come here because that's mate. So we get king 2 g1, queen 2 g8. Keep in mind, king cannot come here or here because that's mate. So king must come back to f1. Now queen goes g2. King can't go here. Pawn's got that. So he comes to e1. Queen can come to either h1 or g1. Get the check. As you can see, he's winning the queen. And this point, Hikaru would definitely be winning. Oh, man. Oh, Hikaru's my boy. One of my favorites. Him and Caruana, my faves. Love watching those guys play. He had a winning moment. I mean, I just don't know how he didn't see, at the very least, and of course, right, he's probably in time trouble at this point. Who knows how much time is on his clock. But just to see queen check, right? Just to see queen check. It just, you just would think, like, intuitively, you would just say, let's just check just because. Instead, he's thinking end game, bring the knight in. Bring in the king in, and it's not going to work out well from here. We get a bunch of checks, and then there's some instructional play here. Obviously, you see the pawn grab in here. Hikaru grabs some pawns here, some more pawn grabbing, some checks. At this point, Sarana's trying to push pawns and get the queens off the board because black has no pawns left. So you see a bunch of checks, some endgame movement here, and then you'll see something very instructional coming up. So as you can see here, offering the queen trade. And is it here? Check, check, check. And then right here, Sarana plays this pawn move because he's afraid of check. But actually, it's not the most accurate move. What he could have played instead of this pawn move, inaccuracy, he could have just allowed Hikaru to take this pawn for check. Because if he checks, then queen comes, and now you have to queen trade because you're in check. And after trade, I'm not sure if it's king take or pawn take. What does the computer say? Computer says pawn take. Okay, so pawn takes. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. And then now you have 2 pawns and they're ready to push, right? So, little instructional situation you have to be mindful of there. Game continues. Finally, we get the queens off the board and, well, oh, I'm sorry, no, wrong variation. Here, offering queen trade. And eventually we're going to get to a position where, right here, checkmate is just unavoidable. I mean, you could come here, but again, forces a queen trade because of check. The queens would be facing off. And if you do anything else, you get, if you move the queen, for example, if you move the queen off of this file, it's mate. If you move the queen anywhere else, it doesn't matter. This is mate right here on H7. So really good game from Sarana. Not a perfect game. But again, you know, chess is about who makes the last mistake. All right, let's go on to the Magnus Carlsen game. Let's take a look at this bad boy. Oh my God. Now this one ended quickly. Let me just go ahead and change out our names here. Okay, cool. So Alexey has just beaten Nakamura, goes into a second game, and this time against Magnus Carlsen. Okay, starts off with D4. Obviously, it's working for him. Let's go back to it. Queen's Gambit. We get a Queen's Gambit decline situation. Sarana chooses violence, takes, brings the bishop in. This is a very instructional idea here where basically you're trying to attack the C7 pawn to get this knight fork on the king and win the rook. This is very basic. If you're a beginner, you probably have fallen for this trick. So Magnus quietly stops any knight tricks from coming into that square. This pawn push, you have to understand, is a developing move to bring the bishop into this diagonal, where it's going to control this diagonal, attack this vital square that the king is probably going to castle towards. So Magnus says, no, you're not going to control that. And then Sarana plays this move. Now, this is a move I would not think to play. This is a prophylaxis move, stopping any knight jumps into the game. You know, typically I would probably play, you know, knight, or maybe even knight. Probably, and I probably wouldn't do that. Although you could fiend kettle later. I don't know. Or the bishop move. I could see myself doing these two moves. Anyway, Sarana chooses to restrict the knight. And then Magnus playing a move straight out of the Google engine AlphaZero H5. Now, the computer is going to drop the advantage down a bit for black here. But this is a move I really like. If I'm playing somebody who I believe is not as strong as me, I'm definitely going to hit you with this pawn push. It's going to come down and just make you very uncomfortable and help me with some checkmating opportunities. But really, it's just going to take away a lot of your space. So you just won't have so many options. So he plays that move, and then we get the bishops trading off in the middle of the board like we just discussed. Notice the really good position of the queen in the center of the board. Really good. This is just good instructional. Controlling a lot of squares here. Knight comes in. Keep in mind, the knight can attack the queen, can come in and do some funky stuff there. Knight. Knight jumps back. I don't know why Magnus did this. Maybe he changed his mind and said, "No, I'm not gonna bring my knight out there." I don't know. Maybe he bailed out. It's Magnus. Who knows what's going on inside that thick skull of his, that big brain. E4, looking to open up the middle here. I didn't mean to call Magnus thick skull. I meant big brain. Came out wrong. D4, mistake. Oh, not mistake, inaccuracy. I'm not going to dive into the variation. Not really important. Computer just basically wanted him to keep the tension in the middle between these two pawns. Keep the tension and develop the knight. That's what the engine wanted. Magnus chooses violence. So, inaccuracy. Now notice that white has this good, strong pawn center. 2 pawns in the center, and black has no pawns in the middle. There's no pawns in the middle for black. I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad. Let's see. So knight comes in. Finally applying pressure here in the middle. Castles. Bringing a bishop out. Looking at castle. Then you get this prophylaxis move. Stopping any knight moves. Castles. Bringing the rook in. Trying to control the center on the queen. Here, obviously, the queen attack on the pawn. The announcers didn't like this move. The computer does like this move. E5. The announcers at the time didn't like this move. I forget what move they wanted, but they didn't like this move. I think they wanted the bishop to do something. I can't remember. Anyway, computer likes it. So we get some knight trades. A little bit of knight violence there. And then he brings the knight in, attacking the loose. H5. Also getting the very crucial F5 square. The F5 square, some people say, is as strong as a queen. If you can get your knight to the F5 square, as strong as a queen. And then obviously applying pressure to this bishop, check at the same time. It's a really good move here. Magnus just plays G6, taking away these squares, protecting the pawn. We get H6, bishop H6, invading on the king's side, invading all in the king's house, just running amok, attacking the rook. Magnus says, I don't care. Take it. This is just something only Magnus does. Only pro players at Magnus's level says you can just take my rook. Very instructional here. Basically what he's saying is, like, after you take my rook, like, what are you going to do next? Like, you have no attack. You know, so it's just like, maybe you want to keep that bishop there so you still have attacking pieces around the king. But once you trade this off, you know, what are you really doing? So he trades off, and then he plays this move. Now, this move is a mistake. And right here, Magnus has a chance to pretty much equalize. All he has to do is find queen takes. And that comes with a check, forcing the queens to come off the board, which is good for black generally. The knight comes into a really good square. And then we play some chess. Maybe Magnus was worried about this rook invading on the 7th rank. But maybe you just, I don't know, maybe you just play a quiet move. Like, I don't know, bishop comes in here. I don't know. And then maybe slide the bishop back here. And then now you kind of got the rook trapped back there. I don't know. Again, blitz game, not a whole lot of time to calculate all these moves. Let's go back. Computer wanted Sarana to play rook F2, attacking the queen, protecting the pawn. Also, as you can see, we have a 2v2 on the d4 square. Once the rook comes here, it's now a 2v1. Only the queen is protecting d4. So now we have a 2v1, which allows his capture with a force move, the check on the king, as we discussed. Magnus misses it and makes a mistake. Actually, it's not a mistake. It's a blunder. Double question mark. Red question marks on the board. Blunder. Rook takes, obviously, attacking the bishop here. We get a trade of queens. Bishop takes. And then you get the rook. And this is where the game ends. This is where the game ends. Because, well, it's just all over. This bishop has nowhere to go. It has nowhere to go. Can't go here. Can't go here. Can't go there. Can't go there. Can't go here because rook. And can't go here because rook. It's just a dead bishop. And that's going to put Magnus up 2 rooks and a knight versus a knight and rook. So Magnus resigned. Insane play. Just completely insane. In this case, we didn't see too much of a blunder from Sarana. He did miss this one. This was a mistake that he missed. But thankfully, Magnus Carlsen missed the check. Again, another queen check. Carlsen loses. Nakamura loses because he didn't find the queen check. Magnus loses because he didn't find the queen check. And you would think like that's the first move you would go for, right? Like queen check. Force the tempo. As black, force the queens off the board. And neither of them find it. Obviously, they're in time scramble. But amazing play from Alexey Sarana to take advantage of his opponent's mistakes. If you want to learn how to play chess, we have chess lessons every Monday and Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure y'all join us right here on this channel. Hit the subscribe button for some more game analysis coming soon. Master Focus, we're out.
Didn't listen to me then, I bet they feel me now. Don't let me lose it. The booth not about to prove it. I said goes and pursue it. You the best to never do it. Invest my money talking fluent, stupid, ducking the Judas. It broke my heart, but over my eyes, you have no honor, I have no choice. Chasing the commas till I'm gone. I've been left for a minute. On my way home, mama, I promise, got caught up in it. Damn. Everybody eats when I'm batting at the plate. First, second, third, home, $1 million bet.